It's me, Jess, and today we're gonna make sourdough bread. You will need a kitchen scale, a sourdough starter that has been freshly fed. This is Genevieve, and I fed her last night. Organic all-purpose flour. I'm using King Arthur that I bought online at Thrive Market. And parchment paper, and I have the If You Care compostable and unbleached chlorine-free parchment paper. A cast iron Dutch oven. I have a Lodge. Non-iodized sea salt. A kitchen thermometer. A cup and a half of filtered water that's at 100 degrees. A spatula or wooden spoon. You never want to mix bread with metal. And that's it. So what we're gonna do is put our bowl on the kitchen scale and tear it out in grams. Now this is a section of 30 grams of my sourdough starter that I took out of my bigger sourdough starter last week for this experiment. This is my favorite homemade bread recipe, but it usually just calls for a packet of regular yeast. So I read online that 100 grams or so of sourdough starter is about equal to a packet of yeast. So here I have 153 grams of fed starter. And I'm just gonna put that in my bowl first. Ooh, you can see how bubbly it is. So normally when you work with your sourdough, you take some out for your recipe, and then you have your main sourdough that you keep. So I have a bigger jar of sourdough, the mother of Genevieve, that I'll show you in a video really soon. Okay, so my water is at 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's because anything over like 110 will kill the yeast in here. So I'm just mixing in the warm water. Okay, and now I'm going to add a teaspoon and a half of non-iodized salt, of all-purpose flour. And I do this by weight, so I know that that's 360 grams. So I've just teared out my grams here, and I'm just gonna kind of dump in until I get to 360. All right, and 360. And mix this. I just kind of do this folding motion. And you'll see it starts to come together like a shaggy dough pretty quick. See? So this is a no-knead recipe, which is why I like it. So the stirring and the folding here is what kind of starts the gluten development in the bread, so you get those like big bubbly air pockets. Okay, so once I don't see any more dry spots, I just kind of use my spatula to make it kind of a little ball in the middle, like this. And now I'm just going to cover this with a lid or a wet towel. You just don't want the top to dry out, and let it rise for 4 hours or until it's doubled. So it might take longer because I'm using my own sourdough starter instead of the instant yeast. So I'll check back later and let you know how it's going. It's 7 hours later, and we have a great rise. This was where it was when we put it away, and it's all the way up to here, and you can see all the great bubbles in there. So the next step is to preheat your oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit with your Dutch oven inside And then once it reaches 450, leave it in there with the Dutch oven in there for at least 20 minutes to preheat the Dutch oven. And I'll show you how to get the dough ready next. Okay, so the cast iron just has about 7 minutes left of preheating. Here's our beautiful dough. It rose perfectly. So the next step is to just kind of dump it on the edge of this parchment paper. And I try to keep it in one blob. So it kind of like wants to stick together. So I kind of separate the edges and then just dump it out on the parchment paper. Okay, and then you just kind of pull it towards itself to kind of shape a little loaf. Okay, and then you just grab the parchment paper and flip it over. So what was the bottom is now the top. We're just gonna grab a knife and put a couple slices in the top. As soon as the cast iron is ready, I'm just gonna pick all 4 corners of this up like this, and pick this up and drop it right in the cast iron, and put the lid on and cook it for 35 minutes. And then take the lid off and cook it for 10 more minutes, and take it out and let it rest for at least 1 hour. Very carefully, because this is super hot. Take the lid off your cast iron. Grab out the corners. Drop it in the cast iron. Put the lid back. We're gonna bake for 35 minutes with the lid on, 10 minutes with the lid off, and then it should be ready. It's time! Okay. Careful, careful, careful. Super, super hot. Get the lid on. Have a place ready to set the hot lid. And 10 more minutes. The moment of truth. It's ready. Now let it rest for 1 full hour.